Hello, everybody. Welcome back to yet another monthly reading wrap up, and this time for the month of October. Honestly, I feel like I'm saying this in every monthly reading wrap up, but I truly, genuinely do not know how it's already November. What is time, truly? But a concept. But anyway, so the books that I started October with are the second and third books in the ACOTAR series. I read A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I have full-on spoiler vlogs for all of the first three books in the ACOTAR series, so if you want to watch those videos, they are already up on the channel. I feel like from the first three books, Mist and Fury is definitely like my favorite one, followed very closely by Wings and Ruin. The first one, ACOTAR, is kind of weak. I don't think is a great start for the series, but these two books are really good in comparison to that beginning. I really liked the character development from Mist and Fury, and I also liked in Wings and Ruin how all of these like crazy things are happening, and even though they're not like as well explained as I would like them to be, it was still like a great time reading this book and reading the whole series until now, honestly. And I feel like Sarah J. Maas is very good at like constructing characters that you really empathize with. I'm really excited to continue with the ACOTAR series. I want to do reading vlogs for the fourth and fifth books in this series. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So these were A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. After that, I decided to take a break from the world of ACOTAR because I felt like I truly needed that. And I read truly one of my most anticipated releases for this year, Thief of Night. But in order to read this book, I have to read the first book in this duology, and that is Book of Night by, obviously, our fairy queen, Holly Black. I also have a reading vlog for this duology, spoiler free, but I go more in depth about these books in that video. I really liked this duology. I think this is great urban modern fantasy. It is quick, it is fast paced, you have really interesting characters and world building and a magic system that truly speaks to Holly Black's genius. I think I loved this duology. If you only read the first book and you were not convinced, I highly recommend you continue reading this duology with Thief of Night. I feel like in Thief of Night, the majority of the concerns that I see online regarding the first book are addressed. The first one doesn't really have a very good explanation for how the magic system works, but that is done on purpose and it is expanded upon in Thief of Night. We truly get to understand why certain things were almost omitted from the first book because they are relevant to the plot of Thief of Night. But let me tell you what this duology is actually about. So we are following our main character, Charlie Holt. She's a thief and she's very good at stealing magical objects and artifacts. And when we meet her at the beginning of Book of Night, she is retired from that life. Like she's just a bartender. Well, just a bartender, right? She doesn't steal anymore and she's trying to live a peaceful life to help her sister Posey get into college and better their lives, basically. But she gets entangled in this whole underground scheme. She has to steal this very powerful book that everyone seems to be after. In the first book, we are led to believe that that book is kind of like the key to immortality, but we will learn in the second book that it's even more than that, and Charlie has to go on this journey to uncover what's going on, but also to potentially pursue a personal vendetta that she has from when she was a kid. I really like how in the Book of Night we are truly learning more about these characters and we are seeing them in their past. We are following Charlie as she is a kid and we truly understand why she's doing certain things that she's doing in her adult life. It's because those were instilled in her from like a really young age. She was almost groomed by this very close friend of her mom's to become a thief, and that's why she's very skilled at stealing things. It's because she's been doing it for ages, literally. I really liked the dynamics between Charlie and her mom and her sister. Like you can clearly see that they're a very dysfunctional family, and Charlie is trying to raise Posey in like a better way than than their mom did is very sweet, and I really liked those themes a lot. We are also following Vince, who is Charlie's boyfriend, and very early on in the book we find out that he doesn't have a shadow, and people that don't have shadows are very ostracized in the world of these books, just because possessing a shadow can potentially unlock like a bigger power. As I said, the magic system kind of confusing in the first book. It gets better in the second book, and it is actually explained how it works and everything like that. But I just found the concept super interesting. The characters very compelling. Also, another thing that I wanted to mention about this duology is that I really liked the structure. The first book starts with this prologue that seemingly doesn't really have anything to do with our characters, and as you read more and more from the first book, you start realizing, oh wait, that actually makes sense and it is relevant for the story. So yeah, I really like this duology, and I would highly recommend you read the second book if you only read the first one and you were not impressed by it. Next up, I read a book that I've been seeing everywhere in the past couple of years, and I really wanted to read it, but I was just intimidated by the sheer amount of girthness or thickness, if you will, of this book. I am obviously talking about The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Look at this cover. It is just absolutely gorgeous. If my camera wants to focus, that would be great. But yeah, I finally read this book in October, and honestly, I'm so pleased I did that. It is not perfect, but I still gave it 5 stars just because of the journey and just because of the characters and how much I liked to be immersed in this world of the Priory of the Orange Tree. I don't really know how I could describe this book because there are a lot of things that are happening, but this is basically like a kind of political fantasy that is very character driven. Obviously, they have like a main thing that they want to do and achieve by the end of the book, but the book is not really about that. It is not really about their mission, but about the characters and how these characters are all coming together and teaming up to achieve the unachievable, let's say. In that sense, it is very similar to the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology, not in terms of plot or action or what's happening, or even in terms of like character structure or anything like that, but just in the vibe of the book, let's say. Let me attempt to explain what this book is about. So obviously we are set in a fantasy world, and on one side of this fantasy world, we have the Queendom of Innis. Now, this Queendom of Innis is ruled by Queen Sabran the Ninth, and Queen Sabran has a very interesting legacy. She comes from a bloodline that was able to save their land like a very long time ago, and from that point onwards, the Queendom of Innis was only ruled by queens, as you would expect from the name of it. So the role of the queen in Innis is basically to give birth to a daughter, and the queen very soon dies after that, and her daughter is like taking over the queendom, and this is how they maintain the bloodline. It is believed that their bloodline is able to keep the dragons at bay. Anyway, we will learn that that's not actually the case, but because Queen Sabran doesn't really know what happened in the past, she's not really aware of the truth and what really happened there, she is under a lot of pressure. She is at an age now, I think she's 26 or 28, something along those lines, and she's under a lot of pressure because she has to give birth to the next queen of this land. The problem is that she doesn't really think she can do that. She has all of these premonitions and nightmares that she's gonna give birth to a boy, or that she's not going to be able to give birth point blank, and that is going to bring the demise of their queendom. So this is what happens on one side of the land. What's really interesting is that we are not in the point of view of Queen Sabran, but we are in the point of view of Iad. I think her name was Iad, at least. Yes, Iad Jurian. Iad is a newcomer to this court. She was not born there, but she comes from very, very far away. She was able to climb up the social ladder very fast. She is now very close to the queen. And her reason for doing that is because she is actually part of a secret society called the Priory of the Orange Tree, the title of the book. And this secret society is basically trying to maintain the balance or the equilibrium in the world. She basically has to make sure that no one murders Queen Sabran because she is under like a lot of scrutiny from the people from Innis. So we are seeing everything that Sabran is doing through the eyes of Iad. Now, on the other side of the sea, we are following at the beginning of the story Tane. And Tane, from a very, very young age, wanted to become a dragon rider. She trained to do that all of her life, and now she finally has to take the exam to become a dragon rider. But the problem is that the night prior to the exams, there is this trespasser on their island, and she pretty much wants to keep this under wraps because she thinks that if this trespasser is discovered, they will either cancel or postpone the exams, and she obviously doesn't want that to happen. Right where Tane is, we also have the point of view of Neclace. Neclace is some sort of alchemist. He was trying to come up with a formula for the elixir of immortality in Innis. So under Queen Sabran's rule, he was not able to do that, and Queen Sabran exiled Neclace, and he's now where Tane is. Tane is asking Neclace for help. There are like a lot of things with Neclace and Tane. We also have a fourth point of view from Loth, and Loth is the heir apparent of one of the Breaches families in Innis. And he is also sent on this journey away from Innis because he's very close friends with Sabran, and the court, basically the people advising Queen Sabran, think that he is a threat to Sabran actually getting married and having a kid because they're like very close together. So he is sent away from the court and he has his own mission, and we are following him. So we are following 4 points of view throughout the book, and I really, really liked all of them, even though Neclace is very annoying and very self-centered and egotistical, and he's arguably like not a good person. I really liked how Samantha Shannon built his character because you're still able to empathize with him at times, even though you know he's not a good guy, let's say. My only, I don't even want to say issue because it's not an issue really, it's just something that I wished a bit more from with this book is with the actual ending, because towards the end of the book you have this like epic battle scene, or what is supposed to be an epic battle scene, right? And that is done in like a chapter, or not even, like it's just a couple of pages, and I wished we expanded more on that battle and what they had to do. And even though you have the characters that are working together to achieve this bigger than life goal, it just feels very, very rushed. So I wished this book was actually like a bit longer, and I know that's like mind-boggling to say because this is very, very thick, but I truly wish we spent a little bit more time with the characters towards the end of the book, throughout the battle scene and afterwards. That would be my only critique, let's say, about this book, is that the ending felt a bit rushed. Other than that, loved the world building, loved the characters, loved everything about this book. So this is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I do have the prequels of this book, and I do want to read those eventually. I am already very excited to get back into the world of The Priory of the Orange Tree through the lens of these prequels, because I feel like they're needed to further expand on the universe. So yeah, The Priory of the Orange Tree. Would highly recommend. Moving along, I did read another very highly anticipated release, and that is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I did read all of the other Stephanie Garber books, and you know, I do have like a bit of mixed feelings about some of them, but I really, really liked the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. Well, at least the first 2 books. The third book was a bit hit or miss. And I also did read the Caraval trilogy. This book, though, is Stephanie Garber's adult debut, and I don't really get why this is adult. Like, I read it and I was like, this still very much reads as Caraval, but with like a better writing style applied to it, if that makes sense. There are a lot of parallels between this book and Carval, and even though I'm not like mad at those similarities, I'm also kind of like wishing for something a bit more. I'm pretty sure this is going to turn into a series, or like at least a duology, because we have two sisters, or two twin sisters, I forget exactly, but I think they're twins. In this book, again, similar to Carval. So I do suspect that the second book in this series is going to be from the point of view of the other sister, not the one that's the main character in this book. This was very much no thoughts, just vibes. I did like aspects of it, but also in the end, I was like, is this really what's going on? I wish this was a bit longer and further developed, because it just feels a bit underbaked, specifically the ending and everything that is revealed towards the end of this book. That said, though, I am very, very curious to see how the upcoming books in this series are going to turn out, and what are we going to explore in those. I will be reading the upcoming books in this series, because I think it can turn out into a very interesting story, but this first book was just not really what I envisioned it to be. If you read the Carval series, please pay attention to what I'm gonna say next, because I think you will see the similarities between this book and that other series. So in this one, we are following our main character Holland, who is taking this myths 101, or like mythology 101 class at her university. And the class itself, it's almost like an urban legend, because you can't really find it that easily. You have to almost find it by word of mouth. She was able to attend this class. She likes the professor a lot, and the professor tells the students all of these urban legends that might or might not be true. And one day, when she's on a date with this guy, she discovers this urban legend that their professor told them about. I think it's called the Watchmaker or something like that. And supposedly, when you find the shop of the watchmaker, he is going to tell you exactly the time when you are going to die. The next day, Holland's date, I honestly forgot his name already. He's not that relevant for the plot at all. But Holland's date receives a very mysterious phone call from the watchmaker. And the watchmaker tells this guy that he is going to die very soon, that same day. And he asks this guy to basically kill Holland, because that apparently is going to prolong his life or something along those lines. Holland goes to see this guy because she's freaking out. After she escapes and her date boyfriend dies, the watchmaker calls her, and he is telling Holland that she's going to die at midnight if she doesn't find this object that is called the alchemical heart, hence the title of the book. The problem is, no one really knows if this object is even real, if it even exists. Somehow her father left her all of these clues before he died, as to how to find the alchemical heart, and she embarks on this journey to find this very object that can potentially save her life. The ending is absolutely bonkers, and if it was explained more in detail, and if it made sense, I think I would have been obsessed with this book, but unfortunately it didn't really do that. Obviously, this being a Stephanie Garber book, it is written in that very whimsical and flowery type of a way, so I did really enjoy the writing style, but I do believe that these characters were a bit, underdeveloped, and I think the plot could have pivoted in like a different direction towards the end. So Yeah, this is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. Next up, I read a book that I had for like a really long time on my physical TBR. I bought this book when it was published, I think last year, and I didn't read it until now, but this month it was finally the time to read The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. This is an author that I didn't read previously, so this was my first book from Catherine Arden. Even though I did like the writing style quite a lot, the characters and the story, I it was just not really for me, and I feel like this is one of those books that I appreciated. Like, I appreciated what it was trying to do. I appreciated the attempted journey of the characters, but in the end I was just like, yeah, like it was fine, you know. So this is more so like a historical fiction, or it reads more so like a historical fiction with a tinge of magical realism interwoven into the story, more so towards the end of it. In this one, we are following one of our main characters, Laura. She is a nurse in World War One. She was gravely injured in the war, something to do with her leg, and she was sent back home to Halifax, Canada. When she goes back home, her parents are murdered very, very early on, and she basically now only has her brother Freddie, who is a soldier in the war in Europe. One day she receives his dog tags, both of them, and she doesn't really know what to do with that information, because supposedly, like, if a soldier dies, one dog tag is sent back to their family, and one of those dog tags is buried with the soldier. She receives this letter that they don't really know where her brother is, but she receives his uniform as well, so she's not really sure what's happening. Like, how are they not able to find him, but they send back the dog tags and the uniform? Like, something's very fishy. And so she decides to go back to the war zone in Europe to find as much information as possible on her brother. Now, we also have the point of view of Freddie, Laura's brother, and the things that Freddie went through are honestly so horrific, and they just like feel so vivid and real that I had like goosebumps when I read Freddie's point of view. Freddie is almost trauma bonding with this German soldier, and they are both trying to escape the war zone, and they are trying to get better, but they are wounded. They are in like the active war zone, so they are just trying to do their best to survive, and they get entangled in this almost magical place, but not really. It's some sort of limbo, and one of them is trapped there, one of them is trying to find the other one, and Laura also gets entangled into this whole scheme as she's trying to find her brother. And it is truly one of those books that is using this magical realism as some sort of metaphor, and it's up to you what that truly means. Like, if those things are actually literal, like with this layer of magic on top of the things, or if that layer of magical realism was just a metaphor for some other things that were going on in these characters' lives. As I said, I liked the writing style. I liked Freddie's point of view a lot. When it comes to Laura, the problem is that she's just so flat and at times boring that I really wanted to stop from reading like a couple of times when I was in her POV, but I decided to push through. This is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. Next up, The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. I know that Isabel Cañas is very famous for Vampires of El Norte, a book that I did not read, but this is a newer release from this author, and I wanted to have a taste, let's say, of their books. So I decided to pick this one up. The thing is that this book starts very, very solid, and then the more I read, the more bored I was, so it just didn't really do anything for me, unfortunately. And even the horror, like, I was so bored that by the times those horror scenes, or like horror scenes, happened, I was like so out of it. I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. With a title like The Possession of Alba Diaz, you can pretty much imagine what happens. This was just not for me. Maybe I was not in the mood to read a story like this, but I was kind of disappointed by this book. I would be interested to read some other books from this author to see if it was just the moment when I read this or this specific book that I didn't like. But yeah, The Possession of Alba Diaz, not really my thing, unfortunately. And we're back. I had to change my battery and also take a break because I feel like I've been talking for ages. But let's get back to the reading wrap up. So, the next book that I read in October is Alchemized by Sally New. And the thing is that the more I think about this book, the more I realize how much I didn't like this book. I know it's the favorite of a lot of people already, even though it just came out. If you don't know, this book is basically started as a Harry Potter fanfic between Draco and Hermione. And that fanfic, Manacled, was probably one of the most well loved and read and raved about fanfics on AO3 until recently. And the author got a book deal out of that fanfic. So they transformed Manacled into this book, into Alchemized. And obviously they had to change like a lot of things for this to be published as to not infringe on the original IP of Harry Potter. The problem with this book is that the characters, they really needed like a lot more backstory, and this feels bonkers to say about a book that's more than 1,000 pages. But this book almost felt like, you know how when you're trying to write a paper like in school and you have a specific word count or number of pages that you have to achieve for you to submit that paper, and you're trying to say like very simple things in as many words as possible. That is the exact same feeling that I had reading this book. It feels like it says these very simple things in like as many words as possible, and it just becomes boring and tedious to read very fast. I was like probably 500 pages into it, so almost like halfway there, and I genuinely considered DNFing this one multiple times through the process of reading it. But the problem is that I've seen like a lot of people online saying that the ending absolutely destroyed them and it was like the most incredible thing that they have read and stuff like that. And I was genuinely like super curious to see what's gonna happen in the end. It was fine. It was fine. Like the ending was fine and was suited for this type of story, and I think it's the best outcome possible. But does it mean I liked the entirety of this book just because I somehow sort of liked the ending and I thought it's, the best case scenario for this type of story? No, absolutely not. So let's start with what this book is actually about. So we are following Helena, Hermione, right? As she wakes up in this somewhat sort of hospital and she doesn't remember anything. She was part of the resistance because they were in this war with some necromancers, and she just doesn't remember anything after that. Like she knows she was involved in the resistance, but she doesn't remember what happened to her friends. She doesn't remember the fact that their enemies, the necromancers, won the war. And now she's waking up in this very clinical setting and she doesn't really know what happened to her. And because someone seems to have put this very powerful spell on her brain, on her memories, they can't really break into her brain to retrieve those memories, they being the enemies of the resistance, right? They are sending Helena to the High Reeve. His name is Farron, and he is one of the most like powerful and feared necromancer in this world. They are sending Helena to Farron in order for him to break her mind and retrieve those memories, because the enemies of the resistance believe that Helena is harboring very dangerous information in her memories, because otherwise no one would do this thing. No one would just glamour away her memories. So this is pretty much what's happening in the first part of this book. The first part is like almost a full book, like 300 pages. The thing is that we don't know who Helena is. Like, we are seeing all of these horrible, horrible things happening to her, and obviously you're able to empathize with the character. At the end of the day, you see her in all of these situations, you have pity for her, but after a while it just becomes tedious without actually knowing who she is and what she did to end up in this situation and stuff like that. And while it is true that in the second part of the book we are transported back in time, when the war was happening, and we see Helena and who she was at that specific time, we still don't have a lot of information on her and who she is as like a person, as a human being. We have very, very few information about who she was as a child, who were her parents, where she came from, and stuff like that. The same is true for her friends and for her best friend. We are told a lot of things, but we are not shown those things. Luke, who's supposedly her best friend and he helped her a lot in the past, when we have these glimpses from the war, we don't see that. We don't see how they are best friends. We don't see how he's doing all of these things for her, or her doing all of these things for him. It is just from like the distant past when they used to be close, but now they're just like harboring on those memories, and nothing is really happening in the timeline with the war or in the present day when she lost her memories. Like, it's just very annoying as a reader because you see that something is missing and you don't have that information. Like, you don't know who these people are at the end of the day. Also, speaking about the characters, they make some of the most truly horrendous decisions ever, and while it is true that they're under a lot of pressure and they're very scared that the bad guys will win the war, that is just not reason enough to make all of these like horrible things happen. The bad guy in this book, the counterpart of Voldemort, if you will, I think we get to see him 2 times, maybe 3 times, and even then he just feels very flat. Like, we are told yet again that he did these horrible, horrible things, but we don't see it. We don't see how he's terrifying, how he's frightening, how he is this like super, super villain, right? We are just told. And even when we sort of kind of get like a very, very surface level backstory about who he is, it just still is the most infuriating and frustrating thing ever. And like, just make it make sense, please. This is 1,000 pages, like, it should make sense, but it doesn't really. Also, a little fun fact, and I will literally read from my Goodreads review. The word resonance is somehow used to mean like magic or life force or stuff like that. It is used 530 times in this book, and even though this is a long, long book, it is still a lot of times for that word to make an appearance without it actually being explained one single time. Like, I got the gist of things. I got that it means like some sort of magic or life force or power or whatever, but it is never explained, and it is a lot. It is truly a lot. Now, let's also talk about things that I enjoyed in this book. Even though the characters are very traumatized in this book and they are being abused both mentally and physically multiple times, and they go through truly horrendous things, that abuse, it is never romanticized, and I really, really liked that element. It is very clear from the very beginning that this situation, it is not desirable, it is not something aspirational. It is described as being this horrendous thing that is happening to them, and that no one should be in that situation. Really, I think this is like a very important thing to emphasize in a book like this that is very much based on inflicting pain on these characters. Also, the idea of the magic system I really, really liked. The execution not so much, but the idea that there are these two kind of like magic systems that sometimes can be combined, like alchemy and necromancy. Alchemy is obviously using metals to draw their magic from, and then necromancy is the ability to control the dead. The interesting part is that you don't only have necromancy, but you also have the opposite of that, like I think they're called vivimancers or something like that, and these are people that can control live tissue or people that are alive basically to do their bidding and stuff like that. And again, really, really cool idea for a magic system, but it is never that well explained as to how exactly it works. I wanted more from the magic system itself. Overall, I don't think this was worth the read, honestly. This either needed to be shorter or this exact length, but with more character development, with more character backstory. And I appreciated parts of it, but it ended up not really working for me. Let me know in the comments down below if you read this book and if you absolutely loved it, as there seems to be the case for a lot of people. But yeah, alchemized. Only 3 more books to go. Next up, I read A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim. I really, really liked this book, especially like coming from alchemized. Like it was a lot, okay? But I truly, truly liked this book. It is like the majority of the action happens underneath the ocean or the sea. And it is just like so cool. It truly, truly was so cool. Also, I have to show you the map before I actually tell you what this book is about. But the map is absolutely gorgeous. It really reminds me a lot of the maps from Carval and Once Upon a Broken Heart. It is really, really well done. So, this book is following our main character, Truan Trian Saigas. At the beginning of the book, we are seeing Trian as she is growing up alongside her mother and her father and her 2 other sisters. Her father is always seeking an adventure at sea. And one day he goes on what is the biggest adventure of his life, supposedly, allegedly. But unfortunately, he never returns. And they don't really know if he is just disappeared and no one can find him or he truly died. Obviously, because they loved their father very much and also their mom loved her husband very much, they are very distraught with this thing. Like they are very uncertain as to what happened. Like, is he captive somewhere? Did he die? Where's his body? Like they just don't know what happened to him. And as a result of that, their mom started gambling. She owes a lot of money to this gambling den, whatever it is in their town. They're very poor. Trian is an art forger. She really liked to paint from a really young age, and now she is just forging these big paintings from these big well-known painters. One day she gets entangled in this scheme that seems to be larger than life, and she finds out that she has to marry this underwater dragon prince in order to save her father and her mother. So she has to go on this journey in the ocean or in the sea, to pass as this prince's wife, or loving wife, I should say. I really, really liked this book. If you're looking for like a fantasy that is fun, is easy to follow, and if you're looking for this underwater type of backdrop to your fantasy story, I would highly recommend The Forgery of Fate. Next up, I did read Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart, and I did have a lot of hopes for this book because I know it is very well loved by a lot of people. Unfortunately, again, this just ended up not really working for me, and I found it quite boring. Like, this was truly a struggle to get through, and it is just so weird because as I read it, I liked the writing style, but it was just these characters that didn't really do anything much for me. In this book, we are following, as the title says, young Mungo. Mungo is a kid in this very toxic and dysfunctional family. His mom is an alcoholic and she is very absent from his life. He also has 2 other siblings, an older brother and an older sister. His brother is this sort of like gangster in their town, and he's also involving Mungo in these like schemes that he's doing. He's getting him in trouble with the police and stuff like that. And then his sister is trying to figure out her life. Obviously, she's still in school while also trying to take care of Mungo because, again, their mom is just not really in the picture anymore. She makes an appearance from time to time, but she is just dealing with her own issues with addiction. It should have worked. I truly don't know. Maybe I was just not like in the correct mind space to read this book, but it yeah, I wanted to DNF this one as well, unfortunately, and I did push through and finish it. This is a very sad book, and I just don't know if I was in the correct mind space when I read it. So yeah, this is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And last but not least, I did read a murder mystery that's called Shady Hollow by Juno Birch. No, that's the drag queen by what's the author of this book? Juno Black. Excuse me. So, Shady Hollow by Juno Black. I actually really liked this murder mystery. It was very like cozy, if I can say that about the murder mystery. We are following our main character, Vera Vixen, who is obviously a fox. She's a reporter. She came from the big city in this small town to be a reporter, and she just takes it upon herself to uncover who the murderer is. But obviously, in doing that, she just starts uncovering like more and more shady things that are happening in this town, and it is like very on the nose. Like the murderer or like the main suspect ends up being exactly who you would expect to be. But it was fun, it was a fun read. And this is a series of murder mysteries set in this Shady Hollow universe, let's say. And I am very excited to read the other books in this series. It is fun, it is fast paced. This is Shady Hollow by Juno Black. And with that, this is the ending of today's video. Thank you all for joining me yet again. Let me know in the comments down below what was your favorite book that you read in October or just like recently. I would like to know that. What are some books that you would like me to read? Please drop your recommendations in the comments down below, and I will see you soon with a new video, hopefully here on the channel. Bye everyone. Take care.